Okay. Morning. We have quorum. Mike and Sarah. And we have around the table here members Dan Lynch and Mike Hoffman and Assemblyman McDonald, and we're still waiting for Megan. But since we have quorum and we have such a large agenda, I'd like to get us going and start with pretend I'm Steve Lerner, who unfortunately is tied up with a personal matter, and just turn it over, if I may. This is the Audit and Finance Committee meeting. I do believe we need a roll call for this.
Yes.
Sir, you want to take that?
Certainly. May I ask who's present? Mike Hoffman. Thank you.
Daniel Lynch.
Thank you.
John McDonald.
Thank you.
Michelle Bernard?
And video?
Mike Dennis.
Thank you.
Sarah Reginelli.
Thank you.
And Steve Lerner's here.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. Steve, you can introduce Meredith.
Oh, I will. I don't know when they're going to call me here, but I'm here. Let's see. Good morning, everyone.
Disappear, we'll understand.
And congratulations to Meredith on becoming a grandmother.
Oh,
Congratulations.
thank you.
So did we call the meeting to order? Yes, we did. Right.
So do you want to hand the baton, or?
We're going to review the ASM budget, operations budget, the ABO format, and the engagement letter, correct?
Correct.
And I'll defer right over to Meredith.
Thanks, Steve.
Evan, could you bring up the ASM budget, please? Albany Capital Center budget. ASM. I believe that's the correct one. That's right.
Okay.
And Meredith Shannon is here to explain the key points of the ASM budget.
Oh, you want me to go first? Oh, sure. Okay, so definitely, always, the last couple of years has been a little challenging trying to predict what the future holds. You know, the crystal ball is definitely challenging, but ASM is really great at supplying us with some guidance. You know, it's really beneficial that we have facilities, you know, across the United States that are all pretty much going through the similar, if not the same situation that we are. So in taking cues from corporate and some guidance on direction of corporate, we were able to successfully get the budget together for you guys today. Some definite key points to keep in mind. You know, my position now is 100% ACC position versus Doug, that was a split position prior. We also have removed the director of operations position. That again was a shared services employee position. Just based on operations and our day-to-day, we just found that it was no longer needed to have those services, you know, come up from the Times Union Center. So we're a little bit more independent than we were a few years ago. And definitely in going through predicting the amount of activity for next year, definitely corporate is very positive on return to business. It's just going to be in a different style than we're all used to. Our corporate office is still saying that specifically meeting industry will not really pick back up until the end of 2023 into 2024. So they asked us to be conservative in, you know, suggesting those numbers or the numbers of meetings. All of you around this table, usually the meeting category is up in the 70s or 80s for us for the year. So we try to be conservative on those numbers. Obviously, social and sports has been a big category for us. Social more than anything, I think even at the tail end of this quarter has been very popular. So you'll see, you know, the normal run-of-the-mill stuff in the actual budget, but there'll definitely be some tweaks on the projections of numbers and such like that. You know, I'll let Meredith call out, you know, anything specific as far as what she sees, numbers and things. But overall, the budget is very solid. We are projecting to be close to 2019 numbers, but just not quite there yet. We wanted to be a little conservative on estimating, where we were gonna be able to get to next year, because we're still navigating this very interesting experience.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, meetings is really the last category to come back.
Yeah.
So, it's important that we fill the space and use the space appropriately.
Yeah.
And I know that's what you and your team are trying to do.
Yep, agreed. Meredith, I don't know if you
Sure.
have anything else that you'd like to.
Well, if you could turn to page 3, that's I think it's the lead income statement. And you're used to this, but as far as the bottom line on this projected budget for 2022, we're projecting a loss of 1.44 for 2022. And this moves into the overall Convention Center Authority budget. That is the line you'll see tied to another item on the spreadsheet. So, I think Shannon spoke to this pretty well. Last year's theme was conservatism. This year's theme is cautious optimism, I think.
Yeah.
So, but Shannon, I just want to thank you. She's been instrumental with helping Amy Thompson and myself, and always getting the financials done, and also same with the budget. So we really appreciate, your cooperation and partnership, really. So if we can move on to the spreadsheet, the ACCA budget. And it's in your packet, I think it's tab 3. Yeah, and Duncan was kind enough to make this a little bit bigger for everybody.
Thanks, Duncan.
So as usual, the budget is built based on the hotel occupancy tax. Yeah, okay. Which is the line, there we go, there it is, the hotel occupancy tax, 4,100. So we're budgeting 2.7 million, and this, again, is always in alignment with Discover Albany and their STR research that they use. So there's nothing unusual about that. Moving down to the operating expenses, starting with salaries, we estimated a 2.5% COLA adjustment that was built in to the budget for 2022. Account 7,000, if you could look down to there, that's what I was speaking to earlier. Correct. That is where you're going to see the Albany Capital Center, those operating losses, they feed into this budget overall right there. Let's see, and at the bottom, as per usual, we convert this budget into a cash basis by adding back the non-cash item of depreciation. And that gives us a change in net assets of 989,000 to the positive before reserve and capital improvements requirement as per the operators agreement. We budgeted the required funding of the reserves of 600,000, as well as the required capital improvements, which are 660,000. So, and speaking with Duncan, these for next year, this year's improvements were more of a focus on the COVID. Next year the focus is on the physical plant as it relates to attendees and the overall end user experience, including back of house items that are important to event planners and the vendors. I'd like to move on to the ABO budget, the ABO filing.
Any questions on our budget before we do that? Dan?
Yes, so there was a mention from Shannon, I just putting on my County of Albany hat for a moment here. Shannon's position is 100% now to the ACC, as before Doug was a split 70-30, was it?
Yes, it was.
And then the general manager, Bob Belvers,
90-10 now.
90-10
It was
now.
70-30 opposite.
As well as security, right? Was a change.
Yeah, security is, we're working through that change right now, but yes, instead of being the 50-50 for the assistant security, it'll be 100%.
What's the overall damage to the county as far as the difference in overall cost?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but, we have the shared employee agreement, and I can certainly provide you with those numbers.
Thank you.
Shannon will have to provide you with the exact numbers because things are moving a little bit. But what we did do is reduce it equally for the county
Yes.
and for the authority for this facility. So we tried to maintain parity. Both numbers are less, the overall savings are less, but they're comparable to one another.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the ABO format for the Albany Convention Center Authority. This is a required format. It's a little different than the other budgets. If you look into the next year adopted 2022, and also we're required to forecast out 4 years, not just for the next year, and I'll get into that a little bit. But as far as non-operating revenues, line 3, the municipal subsidies and grants, this is where the hotel occupancy tax lives. Item 4, other non-operating revenues. If you look at, and I'll talk to this later too, when I speak about the financial results for August, but you can see 627,000 coming in for 2021. That is the shuttered venue operators grant that was received in August. This is a one-off and therefore not forecasted for future years. Moving on to expenditures, line 6, just want to bring quickly to your attention. This is going to reflect a reduction in costs because we're replacing the night shift plan with similar coverage through CDPHP. We've spoke to that in the past as well. Line 7, professional services. This is legal, accounting, and audit services. Line 8, other operating expenditures. That is the consolidation of the ASM funded losses and the non-cash item depreciation. Let's see.
Just one comment, can I make one comment on that?
Sure.
It's maybe Duncan can explain, just for those who on the $627,000, that was sort of unexpected, wasn't it?
Correct.
Well,
Happily
It
unexpected.
was not much.
appreciated, but
So was COVID.
Right,
it was not budgeted, Steve.
right.
We did in applying, expect that we would qualify for something. The question came down right to the wire as to how much we would qualify for. Because it was, this facility fit their pro forma, but not all of the activities at this facility met their requirements. And it was ASM who put together a combined application which took into account ticketed events, as well as the loss in projected income, the cost that was necessary to accomplish cleaning, additional air quality, work in the building due to COVID. And we ended up awarded 626,000 and change against what could have been, I think, 706. So we did pretty well in terms of a percentage of the total that we would have been eligible for.
I just wanted to bring it up quickly because it sort of just appeared when we received it, so.
Well,
Good.
that's correct. It was right in the last minute is when we found out. We didn't know. They did not tell us.
I
Thank
also
you, okay.
just like to note that under expenditures, the employee benefits, Meredith just noted that we've discussed it before, but in our special meeting, there is healthcare. It was really just an average that the,
Based on 2021 actuals.
you mean the 2.5?
No, the.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Oh, 258.
258. Right, I mean, I expected 2021 to be a little bit lower. Going from 196 to 258.
Well, yeah, and the actual is 134.
Then it goes back down.
Yes, it kind of jumps, and I don't know if there's a cyclical
It looks,
analysis we're supposed to do or something.
it almost looks like it, because if you go out to year 4, you're at 252 again.
Does that include the economic impact analysis that's on the agenda for later today?
No,
We can take a look at that.
Yeah, which is nice, and
Yeah.
certainly can have our.
Just be good to follow up on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I.
Got 3 years, so.
I think what that is based on are the projections. I think that includes ASM's contract, and I think it includes the incentive qualitative fees. And those are based upon the revenue projections. This is where some of the other documents feed into this.
Okay.
And there are percentage increase
Right.
every year.
So, yeah, there are percentage increases. Now, I can't explain why 22 is necessarily lower by a small amount than 25. There's some variable there that's coming into place.
Sure.
But as we all know, your contract has a base fee, which is paid on it's accrued on a monthly basis, paid on a quarterly basis. And then at the end of the year is analyzed through metrics now, as opposed to the previous more subjective process. So this, I believe, includes those
The
based on the
incentive.
metrics.
The incentive payment of
Yeah,
100,000.
the incentive payment.
That would make
Which is
sense.
around 100,000, but it varies, it can be more, it's a percentage of the total. And it's all based on metrics, and I think that's where this is coming into play.
Right, but we'll clarify that for you.
And that's a nice thing, we have a few days before these are due, so if there's a minor change or something, I think we can inform the board.
Absolutely. All right, the last item on here is the capital asset outlay, which ties to that the first spreadsheet we reviewed. So, I mean, as in the past, we've taken a conservative approach. And historically, we've not required to budget out on those capital items for the next 3 years. So that is not there, and we've always done that in the past. This is required to be filed by 9:30, so we have a few days on that. And this concludes the budget of the Albany Convention Center Authority.
any further questions? You got any comments before we move on?
Thank you, Meredith.
The committee needs to make a recommendation to the board.
Yeah.
Can it make
Yes.
one recommendation, Bob?
recommendation.
To all these?
I'll make a recommendation to approve, forward to the board.
Second? Michael? All in favor?
Okay, it's noted that the members present are in favor. Can we have a roll call of those who are still on the virtual?
They had their hands up.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I was writing, I didn't have my head up.
You can't see me, so I'm an aye.
Okay, aye.
Yeah, the same as up or down.
Thanks very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Next item is
I
the
know,
tab 5, which is the engagement letter.
yes, no.
Do we need to discuss the engagement letter at all, or is that?
Could you bring that up, please, Evan? Thank you.
I don't know that we need to discuss it. If you just want to talk through the process, looking through this, it certainly is very similar, if not exactly similar, to what UHY's done in the past.
It is, and we checked with UHY. Alex Zhang may still be the lead auditor this year, but I believe this is the last in 5-year cycle, so next year, not next year, but the year after, the lead auditor will change. The firm can remain the same, but the lead auditor has to change the name every 5 years.
So I'd be glad to take a motion to approve the audit engagement letter. Dan, thank you. Michael,
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
They can't see us, why am I doing this?
I know, it's okay.
Great. Okay, we can move now on to, can I have
Need a motion to adjourn.
adjourn?
So do.
Okay, we got Dan and Lee Summerman. All in favor? Because we have some time crunches, and go ahead.
Folks, I have to go.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Steve.
Take care.
Thank you.
What I'd like to do to assure that we have quorum to do these important votes is to move around a little bit. So as we bring the special meeting to order, do we have to take a roll call for that too?
You should, please. May I have a roll call?
Daniel Lynch,
Mike Hoffman.
John McDonald.
Michelle Bernard?
Sarah Riccinelli.
Sarah, thank you. Mike, thank you.
To assure again that we have quorum, I'd like you to focus on tab 4, which are the resolutions for the budgets and the audit engagement that we just talked about, and then also a review of the healthcare change in that resolution. I just would like to get those important votes, make sure that we have enough folks to accomplish that. So,
Can you bring up the first of the Word documents, please, Evan? It would be the resolution for the ASM's 2022 budget.
I don't know, Bob, can we do these as one, or do we have to do them individually?
Yeah, I was just looking at this. We can do the 3 budgets as one, and then the audit engagement needs to be separate.
Okay. I'd like to ask for a motion for approval of the 2022 ASM operations budget, the 2022 ACCA budget, and the 2020 to 25 ABO budget report.
So,
Assemblyman, second?
Second.
Michael, thank you. Any further discussion on the budgets? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the next is the resolution for the 2022 audit engagement letter with UHY. May I have Dan, thank you.
second.
Assemblyman, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Great. Moving right along.
Rather fast.
The very back of tab 5,
Yeah,
or in the middle, I guess, of tab 5, is the resolution. It's preceded by a healthcare review update, which we've shared. And to sum up the key points of that memo, very simply, this was necessitated because in changing from NISHIP, we lost the group status. In responding, Pioneer tried to create a program that was comparable, which was more expensive. And then upon further review, following the meeting, following the previous acceptance, they found a ready-made plan that was comparable, simplified, and less costly for active service, and that will roll into that which was already approved and is the same as what was already approved for retirement. The actual cost savings are represented on the first page, or on the page of the memo. If there any other detail, I can share that, but the simple overview is it's comparable, simplified, and less costly.
And what the resolution would be doing is, since at the last meeting, you already approved for active service, the Platinum 121 plan, this would be rescinding that approval and replacing it and authorizing now for active service of Medicare Advantage plan through CDPHP. And as Duncan said, it actually is a considerable amount of savings. The savings compared to the current NISHIP plan is over $1,700 a month. And just going back to what you approved at the last meeting, that was premised upon the authority having enough of a group number to make it a primary plan versus being subordinate to Medicare Part B. And therefore is anticipated that there would be roughly $5,000 in savings per year. But again, I'm trying to implement that, is realize that group number wasn't sufficient, so it wouldn't be primary, and therefore Part B would have to be added in as a cost. And then all of a sudden, your anticipated $5,000 a year savings was almost eaten up totally. So upon reevaluation, they said a better plan, given the group size of the authority, would be to use the Medicare Advantage Plus plan. So that is, again, subordinate to Medicare Part B, but it does provide, the coverage, and it, even with adding in the cost of the premiums for Part B, in addition to the premiums of the Medicare Advantage plan, the savings is it's substantial. So that's their recommendation, and that's what we're recommending. The board replace what you approved last meeting to now rescind that and authorize that the active service insurance coverage be the Medicare Advantage plan.
Could you bring up that resolution, please?
And when we get into the audit, we'll also be, ask our auditors to look at the retirement savings as well.
Meredith and I spoke about that, and we will be contacting the actuary closer to the end of the year
Okay.
to coincide with the audit for fiscal year '21. They'll either refresh or they'll give us a new report on the OPEB, and that will resolve the issue of the notation that's been included in the audit in the past, because it'll be, if not material, at least it will be less so going forward. So there'll be no notation in the future audits. Which simplifies the process.
Yeah, and just to add, I mean, this switch shows an actual savings in your financials, which was pointed out during today's discussions. And then what you don't see is right in the audit, in the contingent liability,
Exactly.
which isn't real yet, but it's a contingent liability, the savings will be reflected there as well.
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? It looks simple, but it's been a little bit
Yeah.
complicated.
No,
So we moved along.
The end result is very good, so it was worth the effort.
If I may, I mean, it was complicated also by my own lack of experience in this, never having to have bought healthcare. I learned a lot in a fairly short period of time, and might have been able to shortcut the process had I known more. But, so I may have contributed to the delays and to the fact that you have to rescind something you already did.
And just let me ask about timing, because we have to give Night Shift 3 months?
We've already given them the notice.
Okay,
And they've sent us a notice of cancellation as of 10/31,
okay,
October 31st. In the meantime, I've applied for Part B, and I'm waiting for Social Security to go through that process. And so I don't have that confirmed yet, but I've been told that they'll have it in place by the end of the month, so that everything should fall into place for 11/1.
okay.
And there'll be no need for COBRA or any sort of gap insurance or
Right.
anything else. or
There
any of
should
those
not
added
be
costs.
any lapse. There should not be a lapse.
That's
We
right,
should
and no
have it
added
in
costs or
effect.
anything associated with that.
Okay,
Great.
fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Phew, thanks. I think, I'm checking my time here, 9:32. I would like to make sure we don't lose anyone before we have the discussion and proposal about the HVA market study. So with your permission, I'd like to move that up as well. We have now been in business the appropriate amount of time, and it's changing certainly. HVS, as you know, has worked with us before, and you have the very end of tab 5 here, their proposal to us to really look at where we are as a destination and what our future is going to look like. We think it's a very forward-looking and appropriate action to take to see where the hospitality industry is and where it's headed, where our strengths and weaknesses are, to help us plan for the future. So hopefully you've all had some time to review this, and if there's discussion you'd like to bring up before we vote on the proposal, this could be accomplished within this year. I believe they wanted 8 weeks to, we still have 8 weeks left in this year, so that would be good. Duncan, you feel confident that with some of the savings we've made, we can get it from our marketing budget for this year?
Yeah, I think that we have this covered. I'd like to emphasize that it's a planning exercise, not a programming exercise.
Right.
Is in recognition of a challenge that we put to ASM and said, okay, in the last year and a half or so, what business did we lose to other facilities, perhaps that were larger outside the area? We don't advertise locally, as you know. Also, what business could we have accommodated if we had more space and could have included more events on a parallel basis? And they came up with a list of 35 or so. We then processed that list through the destination calculator using Discover Albany. Jay and Jill and their team helped us understand the extent to which it's currently estimated that we turned away more than $13 million worth of business. And then in a study of percentages, it appears that a simple 8% increase in attendees would produce that 13 million, along with other benefits, including about a 22 to 23% increase in sales tax. And then divided between the state and the county, it would equal be around 20 to 22% increase by just a simple 8% increase of the number of attendees. So it led us to the point where we then came to the chair and started talking with those board members and making this, seeing what would be possible. And now I think we need the expert advice of HVS, which has done very well for us in the past. The first market study being in 2013, and then they revised it in 2016, updated it, to get a better idea of what we might be planning. But before we could ever talk about program or anything like that, I think we need to know whether these numbers are a blip on the screen or whether this is a trend that is something that perhaps this board would want to invest in.
Further discussion?
Duncan, I can certainly add that HVS is a well-known tourism, firm. I mean, if you're going to do something, you got to make sure you got a great firm that's trusted, because otherwise you just got numbers that kind of become meaningless. It's hard to forecast what's out there because nobody exactly knows what's coming. But they've done feasibility studies for me on hotels. They've done appraisals for me. They've got a list in here. They know the area. They know the market.
Yep.
They know the business. And clearly, if you're going to move forward, and I think it's exciting, by the way, because my whole life, I think when you bring outsiders in and they spend money, everybody wins. I mean, they think it's only the hotels or they think it's only the restaurants, but it's really, in my opinion, and prejudice here, but everybody wins when you bring people in and spend money. And that's kind of what I think the purpose of this facility is, and to pay taxes. So HVS is as well-respected name as you could have. They did the first study, so they already got a history of what's happening in Albany and happening at this facility. So
And they've done
I think it's
a
really
great deal
exciting.
of
I
work.
think it's a great opportunity, and there's not 1 ounce of doubt in my mind that that's the right firm.
The other thing I would add too that helps HVS in this case is that we have the years that we've been open as a track record. Before, it was all based on estimate. It was all based on many assumptions. Now we can point to the very good record that ASM has created here, the performance. We have data, which is going to help this process
You're right,
as well.
absolutely.
So I think that when they come back to it, if it is approved, and when they come back with that information, we can market study.
Apologies for my delay.
And if approved, that this is going to be that much more accurate, be fewer assumptions, and perhaps give us a better basis for considering program.
Sarah, did you have any comments?
Thanks, Chair. I would want to jump in with a couple of points that I think are important here. I do like the way that the proposal is structured to look at both additional square footage of meeting facilities for the space to meet the demand that Shannon had been talking about. Those meetings that we potentially had lost due to space constraints, but also looking at of note, the scenario B talks about a potential new hotel and understanding the market feasibility of constructing that new structure. And I think that's important to talk through a little bit. You know, we do have a number of hotels in downtown in particular that serve the facility, and with COVID have reportedly struggled significantly over the past 18 months. And we don't necessarily at this point have a great way of understanding the market going forward for the hotel industry, particularly in downtown, over the next several years. And so being able to have a firm like HVS come in to really help us understand that writ large, not just for this specific project, but really understand the environment, will be a huge help and a complement to some of the market studies that the city's industrial development agency will be taking on in the retail, commercial, office, and residential sectors next year. So this will help us really get a little better picture than, maybe not as good as a crystal ball, but a little better picture than what we're handling right now on across market sectors, what we can expect over the next several years.
Yeah, that would be helpful to capitalize for the Liberty Park project, to have that information as part of your arsenal as well.
Absolutely.
Any further comments? Is Mike, his picture's gone, but.
I have got nothing. Thank you very much. I'm tracking it.
Including a picture.
Okay, shall we take a vote then? Can I have a motion to move forward with the HVS market study proposal? Michael? John, thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Hey, we can get back to meeting minutes now.
Nice job, Madam Chair.
We have two set of meeting minutes to approve, both our April and our June meetings. Let's take April on its own, please. Any reviews or motion to accept the April 29th? Any additions? Dan,
Motion.
thank you.
Same.
John, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll abstain since I was absent.
Moving on to the July 29th meeting. Again, any comments, questions? Then may I have a motion, please?
Make a motion.
Dan, thank you. Second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Megan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now we can kind of get to what we're really here for.
Evan, could you bring up the August financials, please?
And I think Steve had to leave us, so.
Yes.
Want to take it away, Meredith?
Sure, absolutely, thank you. Up on the board, we have the Albany Convention Center Authority financial results year-to-date as of August 31st, 2021. Again, we are starting with assets on cash, very strong cash position with 3.4 million in cash operating and reserves. Total current assets are 4.5 million. We have fixed asset changes for August of 24,900, which include a new sign. This is in projects in process, so it's the sign it's probably not been put in service yet. So that was about 12,400, and the website, which is 12,500. So those two assets were moved to projects in process, and they will be put into fixed assets for usage once they're completed. Total assets were 76,686,346. Moving on to liabilities and equity. We had total liabilities of $1,363,000. The decrease in net assets was $985,286, giving us total liabilities and equity of $76,686. Going up, we could bring up just scroll down to the statement of revenue, expense, and net asset changes. There we go. The top portion of this relates to the ASM event operations, as we've presented in previous meetings. They are showing a net loss right now, year-to-date, of $1,164,374, and those are funded by the Albany Convention Center Authority operations, primarily the hot tax, which came in, which is at year-to-date 1.4 million. I had a note on this hot tax. I looked at that. The actual for the month, for the quarter ended May, was 583,373, which was approximately 60,000 more than we had projected. And just for comparison, for the May 2020 quarter, hot tax was 442,759. So we've improved since 2020, but 2019's receipts were just a little bit over $1 million. So we're going in the right direction, but we still.
Not to zero yet.
Correct. We still have some progress to make.
That was spring.
Right. And you see the grant income there of $627,703. That is the Shutter Venue Operators Grant, which was received at the beginning of August, which was a nice little gift and surprise, which actually gave the Convention Center Authority a profit of $179,000. And we have that, of course, the non-cash item depreciation. If you add that, or if you put that back into the equation, it's an overall year-to-date loss of $985,286. So we're moving in the right direction on everything.
If I may add, one important area of stabilization that has occurred is in the amount of money that's required each quarter. We're in the second quarter now, where ASM has been able to produce an estimate, which they've been able to work within. We haven't had to make any makeup payments. That's a very nice stabilization that's occurred since last year, or that period of 16 to 18 months, where during each quarter, there were at least one additional, in some cases, two additional makeup payments due to cancellations, last-minute reductions of revenue from what had been projected. So we're moving in the right direction.
Okay. Any further questions on the financial report? Okay. That's a nice lead-in for Shannon now. We're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I love that message.
Evan, could you bring up Shannon's report, please?
Thanks, Heather. Okay, so let's get started. Let's do a quick review of 2021, kind of where we're at. Since Q2's report, we have had an additional 18 events contract. Again, I've kind of pulled out some highlights here. Capitalize Albany actually has been with us for 4 meetings, and hopefully some future ones for their board meetings. We have a homecoming event, a cannabis expo, a Society of American Florists is an event that canceled last year. That's back on the books for October of this year. A graduation, House of Kicks trade show, Capital New York Black Expo that has been with us for the last 3 years, a wine fest, and a very large MWBE forum that will be coming to us in December. So it is still truly a mix. We've seen a lot of social. And you're also seeing a little bit of a peak in some public shows, the Capitol of New York Black Expo, the House of Kick Show, the Wine Fest. Definitely starting to see some trends in the public shows coming back. And, you know, each one of those, including the concerts, because at a certain point, those are open to the public as well. There is definitely been an uptick of interest and people just looking for something to do. I think they're definitely seeing that start to spear and surge through the market. We have also had a couple of things that weren't listed on here because they came in such last minute. We have had an influx specifically to Indian weddings. You know, these weddings are usually multi-day, 1 or 2 days, if not 3. And they're usually 500 people or up. We have sort of become a very well-known facility for these events due to our space, due to our food and beverage accommodations within zone, and just our overall package that we offer. And, you know, much like some other things, there's, you know, a small community where 1 or 2 families have their events. You know, there's multiple other families that want to have it at the same place.
Well, and that also drives rooms,
Correct.
and I think that's an important thing too. It's a piece of business that, you know, really no other facility can handle, and it does drive rooms.
Yeah, and, you know, luckily for us, especially over the last few, we've been able to partner with the Renaissance, you know, because they're you know, connected to us, and it makes it very, very easy for the bride to come back and forth. And especially the fact that these are multi-day events speaks to Michelle's point. You know, people coming from out of town or people even coming from in town want somewhere to stay closer to the venue. Because if you might not know, Indian weddings literally are almost an all-day affair. They start with breakfast. They have 2 or 3 different things that happen on day 1. They end with a big party on day 1, and then day 2 is more of the religious ceremony that pretty much starts a little bit after lunch and ends mostly around 11, 12 o'clock. So they definitely have some fun parties for sure, but it is definitely a lot of work and a lot of preparation. So to Michelle's point, it's definitely drives those meeting rooms forward. So currently we're at 154 events, 280 event days, 55,056 people, and 9,814 hotel room nights. We have an additional 13 contracts, and I'm pretty sure I sent another 6 out yesterday. So, you know, we're definitely having an uptick in this process, and I know one of the things that myself and Anna works really hard about is, you know, keeping 2nd, 3rd, and 4th holds in our calendars. At this time, you know, we never really know what's going to cancel. So when we talk to someone, we try to talk them into, you know, letting us still put a hold on the calendar, even if the date is booked, and having them provide us with their sort of drop dead timeline of when they would need to know if the date opened up. This is sort of a new process for us, but it helps us sort of backlog the calendar a little bit. And when we have some of these unexpected cancellations, it gives us 1, 2, or in some cases 3 leads to reach out to immediately to try and fill the dates. In some cases, you know, we're not realizing the revenue as much as the canceled event, but we're at least filling in something. And for me, it's better than, you know, leaving the calendar blank. So we've definitely had some luck with that. It definitely has closed the booking window unbelievably. I mean, we're sometimes booking things 2 weeks out. We actually booked a Indian wedding literally within 2 weeks because our date opened up, and they still hadn't even found a facility that could service them. So they were very, very pleased that that's happening on October 2nd. So backlogging a little bit and doing a little extra legwork has definitely come, it's definitely benefited our process for this year, because, you know, we're almost given, you know, a month's notice at this point if someone cancels, or sometimes even less.
Shannon, if I may interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
You made a key point, I think, that is that this added business, particularly the short window booking business, is not business that is coming from another facility.
Correct.
They've already been around.
Correct.
They've looked, they've tried to find a facility, it's not available to them, so they're coming here.
Yeah, and in many cases, you know, whether it's a social piece of business or a concert or even a small board meeting, you know, they definitely have done their rounds, and and many times they just haven't been able to find accommodations. So, when we're reaching back out to them to see and check in, I would say 80% to 90% of the time, they're like, this is perfect, we just haven't found any, we haven't found any other alternatives, so.
Because there's a sensitivity in the market. Anytime we take events that are smaller than this facility was necessarily determined to full capacity.
And I would add to that, Duncan, the investment that the authority has made for us, as far as the air purification system, and, supporting the GBOC certification for the building, these are things that are unique to our facility alone. And I think that's definitely a point that has to be made, because in the conversations that I have with clients, they feel extremely safe with our protocol here. Not that other facilities or other properties are not doing everything that they can to be in that same boat, but we do have some very good resources here, and we do have some very good plans in place that we've really been able to cultivate because we've been open this whole time. So our resource, or sort of our tool belt is very large, that we can supply people with when we're going to talk to them about meetings, and I think that sometimes also tips us over the edge. For people making their decision. So not that I want to, dampen that info, but we are still having an uptick in cancellations. So we're currently at 52 events that have canceled with 96 event days. And if you're really taking a look at this whole picture altogether, if you add those 52 events in, we'd be over 200 events this year. Maybe give or take, some of the other last minute business that might not have been able to come, it's just interesting to kind of add that back in together and kind of see where we might be at. The cancellations of events are a myriad of things, but the largest category, as you see, is meetings. And I think that trends out to everything that we've been talking to here. So now we'll move forward to 2022. Since Q2, we've had 14 events contract for 2022, which is great. It's one of the second highest number we've seen in a while. Again, if you look at the business that's coming through, it's consumer shows and receptions. I only have one conference in that mix. So again, it's really kind of speaking forward towards this trend of the meeting and convention business being the slowest to rebound. And I even have a 2-week sports camp booked by Kate Fisher for next year as well. So, there's definitely, a segment that is starting to arise, and a trend starting to arise there. But great business, some of it repeat, some of it new. The CR Boma conference is actually new to us, which is great, and does come with hotel room nights, so that always makes me happy. So for 20.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Shannon, now, just on the conferences and meetings, when the cancellations are coming in on the meetings, what's the number one reason for that? Because is it because now they're able to conduct their meetings virtually, or this is going to be a sustainable kind of impact?
Yes, it's a great question. The majority of the feedback that I'm receiving specific to meetings is either they are not able to gain the attendance that they were hoping for. So let's say they've opened registration, they're expecting 200 people, they've only had 20 sign up. So that for me is probably the number one response. I think the overall impact of businesses being able to send their associates versus a virtual is really impactful right now. Why would I send you to Albany when you can sit in your house and just watch it online? It's been putting meetings in a very unique position. Those who want to move forward, and everyone has supported moving forward in a face-to-face, are now faced with, well, do we do a hybrid? Do we do a virtual because we're not getting the attendance that we need? That comes with a higher price tag, obviously, for the technology side. And some meetings are just a little too late in the game to start that process. So that certainly has been a factor as well. But I think the majority of the time, the responses I'm getting is we're just not ready yet. And whether that's financial, or whether that's attendance driven, or whether that's a board like you guys getting together and saying, I don't think it's responsible for us to get 400 people in the room. It's tough to gauge right now. this week alone, I've had 2 back-to-back meetings with 400 people each. So there are some areas in the meeting world that are very readily, excited and supportive to meet together. But there definitely are still some that are struggling financially, I think, and struggling to get, sort of the support from their, people to come back in person.
Is there also a certain amount of uncertainty?
That's true as
That
well.
is that they don't know exactly what the rules are and what the best protocols are.
Yeah, and a lot of people, our signing of contracts has slowed too, almost, very familiar to probably about 6 or 7 months ago. People are afraid to commit, because they're afraid of, the money and the financial obligation should they have to cancel. Nobody can afford to lose money these days, so that's a definite concern as well.
Well, I give you a great deal of credit because, before all this hit, booking windows were getting shorter and shorter anyway. And so now it's really a juggling.
It's a hustle. Yeah, I definitely call it a hustle now for sure. Does that answer your question?
It does,
Okay.
yeah. I was just wondering if there was any projection long-term of the meeting sector kind of just diminishing to the point that there needs to be a refocus. And now that we have someone to come in and review operations in the future.
Yeah. And I think in fairness, the conferences that you see that have a large exhibitor portion with them, suppliers are gonna drive that market to come back. That's my personal opinion. Suppliers like being seen, they like selling their product, they like, being able to get in front of people, and certain conferences allow them to do that better than virtual would ever allow. So I think those will probably be the first that start to come back in the mix. I think you'll see more of the trade shows coming back and more of the conferences that have the exhibitor portion. The meetings that, really structure on education, based, and it's just a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you just pack education into a couple of days. I think those might be specifically the slowest ones to come back, because those are the ones that have realized that they can take it virtually, still deliver the content to the people, and, not have to have the price tag that goes with it, so. Okay, so if we're moving on, that brings us to 37 events altogether, 64 event days, 20,380 people, and 5,764 hotel room nights. We have an additional 17 contracts that have been issued that we're waiting on. This really speaks to what we were talking about for the survey that you guys are gonna be doing. This is one of the things that Duncan has asked me to start keeping track of, so I'll go through this portion really quickly. Leads captured by Discover Albany over the last 2 months. We've had one very large lead come through for 1,000 hotel room nights and 1,500 attendees. It is a meeting-based event, but sadly was too large for us to house under one roof. This event needed 10 rooms in total and a large, very, very large space to feed their group and their presentations. And, we worked with Discover Albany on presenting many different options on using Hilton and us, using Empire State Plaza and us, but it really just came down to they just want to be under one roof. And, that sort of takes us out of the mix pretty quickly there. ASM leads over the last 2 months, I'm sorry, that was an error. It says 1 leads, it should be 21 leads. 5,000 plus attendees. I've been saying, the majority of the calls that we're getting are social and or wedding. So we've had, some smaller meetings called, board meetings and stuff like that we've had to turn away just due to lack of availability. Birthday parties, sporting events, weddings, religious gatherings has been starting to have an uptick. And I think if I could book every single day with a concert. The concert promoters are definitely out in Congress looking for locations. So, we've been pushing them, to the myriad of areas, to the Palace and to the Times Union Center and to the Empire State Plaza and Upstate Concert Hall. And, we've really been trying to just network between all of us as best as possible to help them out. So next slide is really just a record form of 2021. We have realized 94% of our actual budget of events, which means we're getting real close, which is great. I'm hopeful that we will exceed that number by the end of the year. That's my goal anyways. And this is 2022, now that the budget has been approved, I will go through and, set the pro forma of what we're gonna need, for 2022 in here, so that you guys can start judging that out. Before I move on to the next, video, I wanna just make sure I mention, I know I've talked about the Mama Pod a couple of times, it is here and installed, and we've gotten wonderful feedback. The meeting actually we had yesterday, we had 4 people use it, and they loved it, and we got some good pickup from the Times Union, and we actually just got an offer today from a motherly social media outlet that wants to help advertise that we put this in the facility. So I think we'll get some really, really good feedback and pick up from that. And I actually think Highmark did a beautiful job with their graphics. If you want to go take a look, it's over by where the restrooms are, by the Capitol Room. It looks great. It's very inviting, adds some color to the space. So I think that's wonderful.
Shannon, just while we were meeting, you got picked up by Special Events Business News blog.
Yeah, I saw that from
Just came
Rachel
through.
as well, from Baker. Yeah, so I think we pushed that release out, I think early this week or late last week. So I think we'll continue to see some pickup on that. I know last meeting we also talked about installing the wall protection in the restrooms to help with some of the drip that comes underneath the paper towel dispensers. That work will start next week. So we will see some nice update to our restrooms there. And our website is definitely moving forward in full steam. Our team has been training probably for the last week, and we're in final program mode. So all the design work's been done, all the legwork's been done, and our team now is just loading content and information. So we're hopeful in the next 2 weeks that we'll have it fully up and ready to go. We'll definitely give you guys a sneak peek as we continue to work through the process.
Duncan, will that include the authority's new branding?
Yeah, we have, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
And we'll work together, obviously, on, I know you want to do some sort of release, I think, on the new logo. So we'll work together on
But we're gonna time it so the two go together. We haven't heard back yet on the trademark. My hesitation was that I have some preliminary information, but I want to get a little bit more before we send something out for the board to take a look at, sneak peek, if you will. What we have right now needs a little bit of work. But we'll have the new logo.
And that's moving forward, Bob?
The trademark, yes, it's been filed.
Okay, so I know you guys have all been readily involved also in the Michelangelo event. We put together a great recap video that I just wanted to share with you all today.
Reproductions of Michelangelo's famous painting.
And runs through August 23rd. Sam Hessler brings us a preview.
The Albany Capitol Center showcases replicas of some of Michelangelo's
Nicely done.
Yeah, thank you. So, it was a great event for us, and, went much further than just having the exhibit, and I wanted to just kind of talk about some of the impact. Obviously, we did a whole media tour surrounding it, so it was wonderful to kind of have us have this positive impact in the news of the community. We actually realized an additional 11 bookings because of this event. Realized that we had, different aspects of the facility. And just overall, it was just great. We've never really been able to have an event like this. So it was wonderful to realize the process. We have sort of become, I have sort of become the poster child in ASM, and there's probably about 10 or 11 other facilities that have reached out to us to ask how it went and ask what we did, and ask us just about the process in general. So it's been really great for us to be able to be that resource for our partners as well. But I wanted to say thank you to you guys for your support in letting us do this, and the whole process, I think, from beginning to end was very eye-opening because it was the first time we had done it. We learned a lot. But it was great, 4,500 people through the door, you can't really beat that, especially in the
And
current atmosphere.
if I recall, because of COVID, it was like the third time that they tried to
Correct.
book. They
Correct.
had 2 other dates.
Yeah, Doug had worked through this event several times over again, trying to find windows that would work and, trying to also work with New York State restrictions at that time. We had even gone to a point with this when we were gonna do ticket windows where you had only an hour to go through the exhibit and we would limit it to 25 or 30 people depending on what the restriction was. So we were very lucky that based on the time that we had it, that most of that was lifted and people could come through to take their time and people took anywhere from an hour to, we had some couples that were in here for almost 3 hours looking at everything. So I definitely think the majority of the public enjoyed it, so I'm gonna share that with you guys. We had a great opportunity to have an article published with Business View. Doug previously had done an interview with them back in 2019. It's a great publication and it is specific to event venues. This article in particular was about convention center success stories or facility success stories during the COVID time. So it was a great opportunity for us to get highlighted. I just put a couple of clips in here. It actually was a 7 or 8 page spread. Quite lengthy. I was interviewed for a little over an hour and a half, but wonderful information. We were able to support, partners and the zone and ACCA and those who have worked with us through this challenging time. And we were able to kind of just tell our story on how we have survived this last 18 months plus. So just wanted to make sure that I shared that with you as well. And that pretty much wraps up my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions, comments?
Good job.
Thank you.
The last item that you have in your packets is draft meeting dates and times through 2022. If you could please look them over, calendar them if you can, and let Duncan know of any conflicts, and we'll see if we can't hammer this down within the next month. Hey, I think we made it, folks.
Perfect, thank you.
Good job.
So could I have
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. Thank you.
Indeed.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, I keep forgetting, I can't see it.
They see you in spirit.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.